I'm watching you.
Hello, love, I'm Polly. Used to call me Pretty Polly, and now it's just Polly. A wild ride with me will only cost you 50 gold. Cheap at twice the price. What you think?
Fable, and by extension Fable the Lost Chapters, is one of the most enjoyable action RPGs that I have ever played, and that sentiment ranged true with the whole trilogy, including Fable 3. It's not because it has some revolutionary mechanics never seen before in any video game, or because it has one of the most technically impressive game engines of its time. The reason I, and many others, hold Fable in such high regard is a product of it having a soul. Something many modern video games, I think, lack. What other game allows you to go harass blue-collar workers and make fun of them for being poor and not an awesome hero like yourself, or ruin the economy by continuously buying bulk goods and reselling them to that same vendor because you just bought their entire stock of mana potions? And I get it, maybe neither of those things really interest you, but I bet beating children as a grown adult does. I won't spend too much time going over the story here because it's honestly meh, and the main draw of Fable isn't the main quest, but rather the side quest and the systems in play that make this ancient machine run. You start off as a child and hey, it's your sister's birthday, so you have to get her a present, but oh no, right after you give your sister the present, your childhood village is attacked by bandits, killing literally everyone in the process.
Bandits! Got one!
Then a creepy old man tells you to get into his van so he can save you, and he takes you to this place known as the Heroes Guild, which basically serves as the tutorial area for the time being. You'll age up and learn the ways of melee, skill, and will combat, and before long you're graduating as an apprentice and let loose onto the not-so-vast world of Albion to seek revenge for your family and either become a benevolent hero who helps those in need, or a hero who does whatever he needs to make the most money. The morality system in Fable is one of the biggest draws to the game. You can be a good guy or a bad guy, and this is decided by the actions you make within the world of Albion. You can actually see your character changing in real time if you rack up enough good boy or bad boy points. A good hero will get a serene halo, and an evil one will start to go bald and grow horns. Whether you're good or bad affects a few things outside of just a cosmetic change though. Some spells, such as the healing spell, are locked to a good hero, and something like the berserk spell, which increases your mass and makes it look like you're on some type of performance-enhancing drugs, is locked to an evil hero. Go figure. Only evil people are bald and use steroids. Your moral alignment can also change some open world encounters. One I noticed was being ambushed by guards instead of bandits in Witchwood. Furthermore, the NPCs that you encounter across Albion will conduct themselves differently depending on your moral alignment. In my case, they usually end up running away in fear. I will say that for how cool the morality system is in concept, the game makes it really hard to do a fully evil run. Every bad guy you kill rewards you with good boy points, which doesn't make any sense, really. I don't know how a wasp can be inherently evil, juxtaposed to killing or sparing the literal bandit king. At some point in the story, you're going to raid a bandit camp to find your sister. The boss of this quest is a bandit by the name of Twinblade, an ex-hero turned bad guy, and after you end up defeating him, you are given the option to either finish the job and kill him, or spare his life. If you spare him, you are committing a good deed. But buddy, if you kill him, and I'll repeat this again, the literal king of the bandits, you get evil points. So every other sorry bandit sod I murdered on my way in here was a piece of disposable human garbage, but the guy that sanctions them is a good man? Overall though, I would say that the morality system is used to create a dynamic and interactive experience where your choices matter and visibly alter both your character and the game world. In a not so graceful transition, quests in Fable can be divided up into 3 different categories: main quest, side quest, which oftentimes have mirrored versions of each other, one being good and the other being evil, and finally, quests that you just so happen to stumble upon while exploring the vast world of Albion. My favorite of which being the Bordello quest. I originally went to the Bordello so I could bang this old lady enough times so that consequently this demon door would pop open and I would get a cool pimp hat. But then I talked to the owner of the Bordello and he told me about how one of the mistresses has been trying to get him drunk so he would spill the beans on where he had hidden the deed to the house of whores. So I did what any good Samaritan would and I bought 50 beers and started shoving them down his greasy gullet, and to my surprise he got drunk, which led me to watching over him as he lay in deep slumber, whispering sweet nothings about how he had hidden the deed to the Bordello under a tree on the property. And that, bucketheads, is how I became big pimpin' in Fable. Circling back around to quest cards, which can be picked up at the guild, you may choose to boast, which is basically just imposing challenges on yourself for the duration of the quest. The incentive for doing so is to bolster your monetary gain and fame garnered from said quest. Take Attack Orchard Farm, for example, which by the way is a split quest with both a good and evil version. All I'm supposed to do is help these bandits collect 3 boxes of something from this farm while fighting off guards. Easy stuff, right? Well, I decided to do it naked and without using any weapons. Funnily enough, even if you decided to attack Orchard Farm, you can participate in another quest like one quest later where the farmer himself is offering a reward for killing hobs on his property. Speaking of hobs, which are basically just goblin children in the lore of Fable, there are these ones that shoot dark balls of matter, which explode on impact. These are absolutely the most annoying enemies in the game, bar none, especially if you are grinding in a cave full of hobs and trying to keep your combat multiplier up. Combat multipliers are gained with each successful hit on an enemy, but can be reduced to nothing in a matter of seconds if you take damage. The idea of the combat multiplier is to incentivize the player to engage in strategic gameplay. And what is the reward for increasing your multiplier, I hear you ask? Well, for one, it's really satisfying to watch it climb up as you learn the best way to tackle any given situation. Again, coming back to the hobs, I eventually realized that I needed to single out the ones that were spellcasting in order to wreak havoc on the rest of them. And secondly, the main reason you would want to increase your combat multiplier is you are rewarded more XP based on how high the multiplier climbs. So basically, if I get a combat multiplier of, say, 24, my experience gained from one battle will be multiplied by that much. For me, this keeps grinding both fulfilling and engaging, contrasting that with something like Skyrim where I would just sit and craft gold rings for hours. You can actually cheat the combat multiplier pretty simply by sitting behind a rock or some type of cover and charging a bow for about 3 minutes, then shooting a rock troll. This will give you something stupid like a 61 times combat multiplier, which then can be combined with either a might, skill, or will elixir depending on which type of XP you desire, to essentially break the leveling system. You can get combat multipliers even higher though. I saw a guy on Reddit claim that he had gotten one around 6,000, which doesn't seem possible, but maybe if you don't have a life. With all of that extra XP you'll be earning from perfecting combat multipliers, you'll want to spend them on leveling up. Fable handles this in a pretty unique way. Not only do you unlock new abilities and just become stronger overall, the more you level, the more your character changes. Max out all of your strength-based stats, well now you're jacked and have a hairy chest. Max out all of your skill-based stats, well now you're taller than most NPCs. And then there is will, you'll get blue lines in your skin if you max out enough spells. I don't know, that one's kind of lame, but it's there. You're like half blue avatar man. It is very gratifying to literally see your character cosmetically morph and change as you get stronger. Not only that, but the enemies around you seem to get stronger as well. In the beginning, bandits are small weaklings carrying iron swords, but by the end of the game, they're tall, jacked, and are using high-level equipment. They also react much faster than lower-level enemies. It all plays into this world getting stronger with you, or the sense that your character is moving on to bigger and better enemies. Not only that, but as you unlock more spells and increase your stats, you can actually feel that when fighting the enemies. At the beginning of the game, you're some nobody who can cast lightning. big deal, right? But by the end, you're Hulk with time control and the ability to teleport behind enemies like something out of Dragon Ball Z. There is an odd side to leveling, however. With each skill that you increase, you age your character by 1 year, which can lead to some really odd cutscenes where me, the younger brother, is visibly older than my older sister, or me, the child, is looking about the same age as my mother. I mean, I remember looking at my stat screen at some point in the game, and I had passed 12 in-game days, but my character was almost 50 years old. You graduate the Guild of Heroes at the ripe old age of 18. It's all good though, I think it just adds more soul to the soul sandwich. A feature I had never noticed until my most recent playthrough though was the ability to kick chickens was drastically improved after maxing out all strength-based skills. The combat and overall controls of Fable is a bit of a mixed bag. It's fun, and it's not hard. It's just fine and fun. You can play around with a plethora of different playstyles. In my most recent run, I was a magical warrior who could slow time to a crawl. I will say that combat can become a bit repetitive, and higher level bandits do nothing but block and hit you while you're mid-combo on them. It's a bit cheeky, but I guess it's the price you have to pay when there is literally a spell in the game that gives you invincibility as long as you have mana potions. The blocking thing can be circumvented with a flourish strike, but that can also be annoying because your enemy will go flying and take forever to get back into the fight. The game also has a lock-on mechanic for combat, but outside of ranged weapons, I wouldn't use it. To my knowledge, you can't actually cycle the enemies that you are currently targeting. Ideally, it would be something like lock on to an opponent and then use the scroll wheel to switch the target, but there isn't anything like that in the game. It isn't a huge deal breaker. Most combat can be sufficiently conducted by just aiming in the general direction of an enemy and flailing your sword around, but it can be annoying when trying to fight something like an imp that flies around and spawns enemies on the ground. Controls in general for Fable are kind of jank and require a bit of learning, like the sprint key being bound to the right mouse, which is also the input for the flourish attack. So you end up trying to sprint to the next enemy, but instead you do a leaping power attack towards them and lose your combat multiplier, which feels like a ruined orgasm. Also, you can't rebind the order of your spells, so you have to hold shift and either click left or right depending on what spell you want to use, and to cycle to the next round of spells you use the mouse wheel. It's not the most intuitive system, but it works, I guess. Although it was something that I never really got used to when I started incorporating new spells into my playstyle. I was constantly using the wrong ones, which got really annoying really fast. Coming to a close, I would say that Fable the Lost Chapters is a very worthwhile experience if you've never played it, although the game came out in 2004, so I don't know how you wouldn't have played it yet. It's at least good enough for me personally to come back to it at least once a year and play through it with different stipulations in place. There's so many different things you can do with this game, like you can beat the whole game with a stick if you really wanted to, or you could go the whole game without leveling up, and that's a bit of a challenge. I don't know, man, this video will probably get like 2 views.